Hello everybody, welcome to Level Pixel Level and part 2 of the night video. And this one I'm just going to try to add some weights to the character, get him moving around. My goal is just to get him moving with the weights, not necessarily finesse them. I might even do that later on. I just want to get everything attached and started before I move on to the next steps. So weight painting in Blender 2.8 has been different. In 2.79 I really liked the functionality, the way it was really easy to select things in different modes. I find this very janky in 2.8 all the way to 2.9. I don't know what changed, but it's just a little bit more difficult to work with rigs and objects in weight painting. But I'm going to show you how I've sort of dealt with that, and I'm actually going to weight paint this from scratch, so I'm not going to use the automatic weighting. I'm actually going to weight paint everything on this character from a empty weighting group. Okay, so I'm going to select on the mesh here, and I'll shift click on the armature. So the armature is active. You can see it's active because it has this more of a yellow outline to it. And I'll do Control P, and I'm going to do with empty groups. Now normally I might do with automatic weights, but I'm going to show you how I paint this completely by hand, just to get used to the weight painting tools. The automatic weighting in Blender is actually really nice. It's a lot more like what heat weighting I guess would be in Maya, kind of a lot nicer than the automatic binds from Maya, I find anyway. For now I'm going to click with empty groups. Now you'll see here that under my armature the knight is the child, and I have all of these vertex groups now in my data section. So I'm going to flip to edit mode, and I'm actually going to do a lot of this weight painting in edit mode compared to the weight paint option here. Just a couple notes about the weight paint option. If it's black like this on your screen, it's because here under weight paint opacity, I have 0 weights turned on to active. If I flip this to none, it'll show everything in blue. That's probably more what you're used to with the default Blender. Active just shows anything that has a 0 weight on it right now, which is everything because I added empty groups. So I'm going to flip to edit mode. I'm just going to select the helmet, and I'll select this helmet here. To select an entire piece of mesh like that, I just hover my mouse over it and hit L and L again. So I'll scroll down to helmet 01 here, and I'll scroll all the way down again. Actually, I'm just going to make this list a little bit shorter, and I'm going to click Assign. So nothing's changed, but if I flip to weight paint mode, you'll see that this is totally red now because that's assigned to the helmet. What I like to do when I rig as well is now that this is moving, so I just selected my rig and went to pose mode, and I can actually move the helmet now. And that's great, but I will now just push that up here. I'll move it out of the way so it's not going to bug me while I'm rigging other stuff here. So let's do the lower helmet now. So I'm just going to select back on the rig. I'll go to edit mode, and I'll click on this lower helmet here, and that was this bone I added from the last video, and I'll click Assign. I'll go back to my rig, and I'll just move that out of the way. So in the last video I used Symmetrize on the rig, but I forgot to mirror the eye over. So I'm going to go to edit mode, and I have the eye selected right now, and I'm going to do Symmetrize. And that didn't work, and it's because my eye is named wrong. I need to do 01_left for Blender to see the L here so it knows to symmetrize. Another example of how I've named something wrong and a Blender tool broke. So now I have eye left and eye right, but I'm going to have another problem. I've already added these empty groups to my mesh, and that eye right will not automatically add here. But that's no problem. At any time I can just add a new vertex group and name it eye 01 right. This is what's great about Blender, is you can add vertex groups dynamically. You can add bones dynamically whenever you want and delete them whenever you want. That level of freedom though also means that you can make a lot of mistakes as you work if you delete something but leave weights on it. So I'll flip back to edit mode, and I'm just going to select the eye, and I'll assign it to left, and I'll select this eye and assign it to right. So again, I'll go to my rig again, and I'll just get these pieces out of the way. There's my eyes up there. Actually, that's looking really cool. It's going to be really fun later on. Okay, let's do some of these armor pieces because they're pretty big and just sort of isolated to a certain area. I'm going to do the armor pieces the exact same way that I did the helmet and the eyes. I'm just going to flip to edit mode and just select them. I'm just hovering over with L to select, and I can find those pieces also here. There's this little drop down in the vertex groups where I can actually search for things. So I'm just going to go to armor, And it's going to bring up these four. I know it's armor left right here. So I'll click on it and click assign. I'll just do the right side right now. Click assign, and I'll do the wrist protector things as well too. Just click assign. We'll just flip back to the rig mode and go to pose. I'll just move these off to the side. I might just drag them all into the ground as well too, because I'm going to start doing some deformation weight painting soon, and that's a bit more intense. I'm actually going to grab all these and just drag them down. Okay, so I'll flip back to object mode, click on my knight character here. One thing I'm going to do is when I flip to edit mode, I don't like how these are appearing here, and there's this option under the armature right here, which lets me actually turn these two buttons on, which will show me what the modifier, the armature, is going to do while I'm in edit mode. So it maintains the armature pose even when I'm on edit mode of the mesh. Okay, let's move on to the back of the helmet here. That's a pretty easy thing to weight paint and to start with and sort of describe the weight painting tools. And what I might do going forward is actually just time lapse a lot of the weight painting. A lot of it is kind of just like watching paint dry, and I do make a lot of mistakes and go back and forth. And then what I'll do is I'll exit the time lapse and talk about some specific areas about what I'm doing. Maybe things like the hands or even the feet, I'll go into more detail. But for more of the more boring parts where I'm just sort of adding weights, I'll probably just time lapse it with a little bit of music. First thing I'm going to do is select on my armature, the knight deform rig. I'm going to hold shift and click on the object itself, and I'm going to enter weight paint mode. Now you might notice that all of my vertex have this white circle around them right now. I'm just going to turn off vertex mode up here in the top corner. So that's this little dial right here, which will toggle that. And there's another dial beside that, which will turn on faces. So I've actually changed my theme to allow me to do this. If I go to Edit, Preferences, and if you come to Themes and expand 3D View, scroll down until you get to vertex size. So I have mine as a default of 10. You can do 1 or 20, and I think the max is 32 actually. Yeah. So I find when weight painting in Blender 2.8 or 2.9, I like to have that at 10 just so I can really see where all the vertexes are. I'm going to turn this off for now though, because here I can hold Control and left click on a joint. I can do this because I clicked on the armature first and then shift clicked on my mesh and then went into weight paint mode. It's going to show you something right here. If I just click on the mesh and just go to weight paint mode, I can't do this. I can't click on a different joint while I'm in weight paint mode. So flip back to object, click on the armature, shift click on the mesh, and go to weight paint mode. Then the bones x-ray through. And I'm just going to flip to my vertex groups. I'll get rid of the search. And as I control click on different bones here, they start to show up here, which is a really nice feature in Blender. It lets you dynamically kind of just work in the 3D viewport and almost ignore this if you want. Here's where it's weird though. If I go to vertex select here, Control click is now selecting a point. It is no longer selecting a bone. What I find I do a lot is I'll flip to this mode without this selected. Again, V on the keyboard is just the one to toggle that. So I'll toggle between the two modes by hitting V. And then in here, I'll click on the bone that I actually want to weight paint. Back in the vertex mode here, if I hit A, I'll select everything. Now your selection here will also match your edit mode. So if I just flip to edit mode, and if I just select some vertexes here like this, and flip to weight paint mode, and go to vertex, that's what I'll have selected. So the two modes correspond with each other. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off for now. I'm going to click on this bone, and I'm just going to weight paint this. Now that weight painted both sides. Let's just talk about how that worked. So I'm going to go to Tool. I'm just going to talk about a couple options here that you're going to want to have turned on. Now this is changed in 2.8 and 2.9, so you might have to look in the menu to find them. The main ones that I usually turn on are Auto Normalize. What this does is it keeps my weights at 1 across bones. So if I have this vertex here, it might be looking at this bone or this joint right here with a value of 0.5. And it might be looking at this joint right here with a value of 0.5. And that together will equal 1. And that's what I always want on my weights. I always want them to come to a total value of 1. Meaning if I paint this one to, let's say, 0.7, what auto-normalize will do is it'll actually subtract weights from this joint and make this 0.3. So it'll always keep all of your weights at 1. You can turn auto-normalize off in Blender and actually have a weight of 1.3 and like 2.7 here. And you can use this strategically in certain cases, but for the majority of time, I like to keep my weights at 1 total across the entire rig. Just a quick example where you might want more than 1 weight is maybe on a knuckle, on a finger. If you wanted to maintain a really nice edge on a finger, you would almost want that to be more than 1, so it's pushing this way as this joint rotates down. And you can have the bottom of the finger here too. Okay, so one other thing that I usually like to have turned on is X-Mirror. What X-Mirror will do is as I paint one side of the mesh, it'll paint the other side as well. So for this geometry here, what I'm going to do is actually paint everything to this bone here. And then I'm going to subtract weights from the other pieces. Okay, that's looking nice. So now I'm just going to go up this chain and subtract weights. So I'll click on this one and I'll weight paint it down here. I'm just going to turn up my brush setting. I'm going to leave it on mix for now at 1 and 1. I'll just weight paint this up. I'll control click on this bone. I'll weight paint this up. I'm just weight painting to the joint right now. I'm not worried about the fall off. I'll come back and adjust that later. I'm just trying to get everything nice and even. I'll weight paint this one here too. Now, if this was an animation rig, I might use bendy bones for this and get really nice fall off between my weights, but I'll probably do something a little bit different on this one. So what's really nice is I can actually control click on these and actually rotate them to see what that rig is going to do on this object immediately. Now, I have a couple problems, one being right here, so I'll just weight paint that up to there. This one here, I'll weight paint that over. It's getting a little bit messy here. I can't really see what I'm doing, so if I click on this again and hit Alt-R, I can also zero out these values. Remember, if you can't click on these bones, it's probably because you didn't click on your rig first and then your mesh, or you have vertex select turned on. So just keep that in mind as you're working on all this stuff. So I'll just see where that problem was, and that looks like it just fixed it. Okay, now that that's weighted up 100% to each sort of segment right here, I want to do a fall off between the two to even out that weighting. And I'll probably just do this by hand. Meaning I'll probably just put my mix to 0.5 and 0.5. And now I'll just make that 0.5 right there. And I'll just zero that out and I'll make this 0.5 right here. I'm actually going to weight paint there. I missed that. So I'm getting a little bit nicer of a fall off here and something a little bit nicer right there, but it's maintaining that curve right there. So let's just talk about a way to fix this. What I should have done, the way I should have built this was straight out like that. Then I could have curved it in either direction with a really nice C curve. Because I built this with a pose on it, I'm always going to be fighting against it with the rig. I know though that for the most part it's going to be hanging down like this, so I'm just going to leave it on the model for now. I'm not going to go back to modeling to fix this. Okay, so I'll click on this one and I'm just going to go back to my tool and I'll go 0.25 and 0.25. So I'm just almost adding a gradient weight here. I might just do it here as well too. Actually, I'll leave my strength at 1 and I'll just adjust the mix as I go. That way I know that I'm getting a mix of 100 right there. Okay, that's working nice. What I might do is grab on this one and just give it a value of 0.25 as well. And you want maybe right up to here. Just so that when that comes up, it's actually taking that curve out a little bit. And maybe I'll just do 0.1 to there as well too. That's too much. I'll try this one. That's looking a lot better. That's sort of doing what I want. I think this one is influencing right here too much. So I put that at 0.25. Whoops, maybe 0.5. Oh, maybe 0.75. Maybe all the way to 1 for that one. Yeah, 1 looks like it's going to work for that one. Again, bendy bones will give me a much nicer deformation, but I want to put this into a game, so I'm just sort of getting it to a nice point. Here's deforming a lot nicer because it was a bit straighter on its initial pose. So I'll come here, I'll go to mix, and I'll do 0.5, and I'll just do 0.5 to this bone here. It's looking all right. I'll probably do 0.5 to this bone here. One weird thing about weight painting is undo also affects your weight. So if I put the weight at 1 and do Control Z, it'll actually undo the weight or the selection. So just something to be aware of as you're weight painting. It can be really annoying as you're trying to get through some of these pieces. That's looking good enough for now. This one I'll probably do 0.5 as well, just to there. Again, I'm getting a much nicer deformation down here just because it was straighter by default. Yeah, that's all janky up there, but I'm not too worried about it. This isn't going to be the perfect asset necessarily. I'm going to flip from mix to add, and I like to do this just because I can almost do it with a fall off brush. If I hit F, I can change my brush size. So I'll do a really low add value and just add small weights to this bone back here. Weight painting can be a very slow process. I tend to enjoy it. It's really fun to just turn on a podcast or turn on some music and just to start even out some weights and even out some shapes. Again, rigging is usually the first time you'll see a character move, so it can be an exciting time to just sort of play around and test with a character. It's a very odd process as well too, because it's kind of technical and art at the same time. You're dealing with a lot of values, a lot of numbers, a lot of math, but then you're also driving how a character is going to move in space, which can almost be exciting at the same time. So I'm just going between these groups and just cleaning up these weights. Weight painting can also only get you so far. Eventually you'd have to add corrective shapes in. If this was a different type of asset, I might add those in. Meaning if this was more of an animation film asset, I might add a corrective in, but I'm not too worried about it for this. I'm just trying to even out this top part right here. Again, if I did have a shape in animation and it wasn't looking that nice, I could also just add a blend shape later on to fix it. The rig doesn't need to do everything. It's just a tool to get, it's like a means to the ends. It's just one tool in your arsenal to finish an animation or to finish a shot, or to get something ready for the game engine. Okay, I'm gonna pause on this part for now. I might come back to it when I do an animation test, just to see how it's gonna work. And I'll grab this one, I'll just drag it below, because I'm done with it. All right, let's move on to the head. So I'm gonna control click on the head bone here, and I'll flip it back to mix. You know what, I can just go full screen now. I don't need to look at anything else. It's getting a bit tough to see here just because it has this dark texture on it. I'm just going to flip my mode to, what's vertex look like? That's nice. I like that. All right. That's all I need for there. I also have this neck joint here, which is going to push that. So let's just do a weight of 0.5 to there, strength of 1. Okay, that didn't work the way I wanted it to, and I know why. Because none of these vertexes have weights on them yet. So I'm going to undo that. I'm actually going to click on the spine bone. I'm going to flip to vertex mode, and if I hit B, I can select all of these vertexes right here. Now it doesn't select through the mesh right now, so I think I can go to wireframe mode and try that again, and now it selects everything through it. So I had spine 01 selected there, so I'll just click assign, and that gives everything on spine 01 a value of 1. It's a good place to start. It almost gives everything a flood, and I'm going to be subtracting weights away from this with the auto normalize for the rest of this process. So I'm going to turn vertex mode off so I can select on a joint. And I'm going to flip back to shaded mode here. If I go to wireframe, I can't see the rig. On shaded, I can. I'm sure there's a way in wireframe mode to see it, but I like shaded better. So I just want to paint the head faces again here. So I'll put the weight at 1 and 1 in my mix, and I'll just paint those up there. Yep, now if I rotate this, yep, that's looking good. So I'll do a value of 0.5, and I'll do the neck joint down here. And now this will almost get me where I want it to be. So I messed up there. I actually had the head bone selected. So I'm just going to undo, and then I'll click on the neck, and I'll weight paint it to the neck there. If I didn't have that looking at the spine, it would just sort of accumulate down and it would go to 1 at its default. So I don't want that weight on the shoulder right there, so I'm just going to go to subtract, and I'll just subtract it. I do actually want to even this out, so I do want this to go with the head a little bit, so I'm going to put it to mix, and I'm going to go 0.25, and I'll just paint these ones down here to go with the head just a little bit there. Just to have a nice even deformation and have something a little bit cleaner. Yeah, and then my neck rotation will take care of that. That way the head is just moving as a sort of a piece, and the eyes won't really get lost from it. I'll probably use the neck controller a lot more right there than I will on the head itself. Okay, let's move down to the body parts here. I'm just going to go to edit mode and just select a bunch of these armor pieces. I'm actually going to hide them. I want to get the main body, the underlying body hooked up first. And remember, anything that I hide in edit mode will also be hidden in weight paint mode as well too, including all these back pieces here. I'm just hitting L to select them, and hiding them, and then clicking more and just hitting L to select them. Actually, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to click this, do Control I, and then hit H to hide them. All right, let's flip back to weight paint mode. And I'll go to vertex select here. I'm probably going to hit V a lot to go between the two modes, just so that I can click on a bone. Click on a bone, then go to V so I can access the vertex. So I'll do this spine here first. I'll probably weight paint this to it here. I'm going to make it to add. I tend to like using this a little bit better than the mix brush, just because I can then add gradients. So I'll come up to this brush here, or this bone here, sorry, and I'll just do a pretty heavy weighting to this top spine joint. Doesn't need to be too specific to here, and I might gradiate it towards the neck if I have to. I think gradiate is a word. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm going to use it for this, that I'm just adding a gradient to the weight paints towards the neck. Okay, that's looking interesting. I'll just get these middle pieces here too. Just going to turn up my weight a little bit, and I can full screen that. Okay, this is looking better. I just want to see if something weird is happening where if I weight paint this side, yeah, it is going right through. So I'm going to do one other option. Under advanced, I'm going to flip it to front faces only. This way when I paint here through the mesh, it's not going to paint onto the other side. Meaning that when I'm painting in this direction, it won't paint these vertexes over here. I didn't notice I had it off until now because I was doing very targeted weight painting prior to this. Okay, I'll just click on my neck. Whoops. Yep, that's looking nice. Click down to here. And every time I do that, it's because I'm making a mistake with the selection. I'm just hitting Control Z to go back to this mode here. Okay, that's looking good there. I'll probably come to the arm. There it is again. And I'll paint to these ones here. I may eventually move the shoulder there. I don't know yet. I'm just kind of trying to get some base weights down before I really test out the rig. The paint to front faces only is fairly aggressive in 2.8. You have to kind of be looking at the vertex to be able to paint it. It can't even really be in view at that point. Okay, that's looking nice right there. Let's just actually start working through the clavicle right now. I'd like to, yeah, just click on the clavicle. I'll just paint some of these guys to it. Maybe everything in the armpit area I'll probably just do for now. He's not really in a T pose in his default, but so raising the arms on this character is going to be quite difficult later on. Yep, that's looking nice. One problem with my rig though is that the arm is not connected to the clavicle. So I'll go to edit mode, click on the arm, shift click on the clavicle. I'll just do Control P, keep offset. And I'll shift click back on my mesh and go to weight paint mode. Now when I move my clavicle, yep, that's looking nice like that. I may eventually even this out with the spine, but I kind of want to get everything just one coat of paint on it before I start really doing any details like that. And this should all transfer over to the other side. Yep, that's looking nice. So I think that'll finish up this part of weight painting. In the next video, I'll keep weight painting, but I'll probably speed up a lot of the process as I go and just do a lot of time lapses. And then I'll dial in on specific areas and talk about my techniques. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks for my patrons for supporting me in this video. It's because of you guys that I can continue to make these. Head over there if you want to look at exclusive content, see some behind the scenes, and even get early access to these videos. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.